All right, so this is the AeroGear community meeting, the 8th of July. You're very welcome. So we're going to get started by reviewing these to-do items. Um, so I guess that's these guys here, right? So what's the format generally? We just review these and they're done and then move them to the done column if they have been. Is that basically the case?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Just get a kind of
All
an
right,
update on where they are.
All right, so the first one, remove the service caching function from the Android SDK and update the architecture guide to match the latest implementation. I can see that Pasos and Way were involved in this card to an extent. So do you guys have any more info about the state of this?
It's on hold. I am planning to work on this on the next sprint. I am going to link the Jira on the Trello card.
Okay, is there a Jira in existence for that already?
Yeah, I just dropped this in the chat and I'm going to link this on the Trello card.
Okay, sure. I can at least put it in myself so we just have it there now. Right, so I guess that can stay in the to-do column. So the next one is improve the search results. And it looks like this is in relation to the AeroGear website, and there's an attachment to a ticket here that basically says, let's add search capabilities to the AeroGear docs website, something similar to how OpenShift does it. And I guess so there's a proposal here as well. I haven't looked at this yet, but yeah, if someone could give us an update on the progress, how we're getting on with this, that would be great.
Sure. Do you want to click that there?
Yeah.
You can just give you an idea the way it's. If you see the top left, there's a search. This is just for docs.aerogear.org, and we'll see how good it is now. Not very good. So there are a lot of problems with the results. So I'm just working on that. We'll have to kind of move things out of, that's some reference stock. Suppose it isn't the worst result yet, but we'd like a more kind of structured set of results. So I can take on that bit, but the reason why I stuck that in here now is everyone happy with the location of the search, the actual input field, and the general look and feel of it? Or at least, if anyone has a problem with it, raise it now. Okay, I think you can move on.
All right. Yeah, it looks pretty good to me anyways. My one suggestion would be if there's any kind of Jira where we can track it on a lower level, that would be great if we could get it attached to the card so that other people, not just yourself, we can get other people working on it as well if they have spare time and not just yourself.
Sure.
Get some extra eyes on it might be good.
I'll create a Jira and update the card. Will do. Ooh. Thanks.
All right, so I suppose, yeah, Laura, we could move these into the in progress, right? So this is ongoing work then, I suppose, couldn't we?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if it's already in progress, definitely move across.
Modifying a UI to present a search box within the site. I guess this is really heavily linked to the other card that we just looked at. I don't know what constitutes it as being done. Is it when the thing actually gets deployed to the live site? Is that what we would consider to be done? So should I just put this in the in progress column for now as well? Does that make sense? Does anyone have any disagreements? I'll take silence as no. So the next one then is to assign people as owners for the GitHub repos in the AeroGear organizations, and this one is from Wojciech. And I saw the email that went to the mailing list. There was a bunch of repos listed in the email, and I saw some PRs against some repos as well, and I accepted some of those. Do you have any more updates on that, Wojciech? Is it fully done?
Yeah, it's fully done. There's still like 3 or 4 PRs that were merged, but I just think the right people, so they should be done. I think it's really good that we have it. Just one thing to clarify for our community and internal developers: it being actual owner doesn't mean that owner is required to merge PR. The owners are just facilitators, so whatever issue comes in or PR, they actually can assign another person who can. I think it's fully resolved, so we can move it.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well. The owner, being an owner doesn't mean you have absolute power over the repo. It just means that you're responsible for making sure issues get triaged, pull requests and stuff like that. Cool.
Could I ask guys if we could get those thoughts maybe put down in writing, and we can, it would be really good content to add to the AeroGear community section on aerogear.org. The stuff in there that I'm kind of editing and going through at the moment, because a lot of it relates to like some of it's last updated is 2015, so that would be some really nice content that I could get put in there, and yeah, just rather than have it verbalized on the meeting, have it written down somewhere.
Yeah, that makes total sense. What do you reckon is the best way to capture that? In just another to-do card, or?
Yeah. I was thinking an email to the list, but actually, to-do item should be fine. Maybe Wojciech, if you can add your thoughts on what a code owner is in there.
Follow up to the list to get it sorted, and
yeah.
That's it. And then you can use this outcome of the list to get the formal information on the website.
Yeah, perfect. Sounds good.
Yeah, so I guess this is one that we can it's more of a note just so that we remember to do it straight away after the call, as if, this will probably get done fairly quickly anyway. So
yeah, I think just someone to kick off the email, and then it'll follow on just if someone wants to take ownership of that.
Cool. All right, so this last one that we have here is to get some stats on GitHub issues. We would like to know more about the issues, for example, how many of them are actually created by people who are not Red Hat people.
So I ran a wiki script, and it looks like there are about between 50 and 60 issues that have been created in the last year in the AeroGear or AeroGear catalog repositories. Some of it's for like the old AeroGear, the old pre-Fried Henry AeroGear libraries, and some are parts of newer things. I don't really know what stats we wanted, so I just attached a list of all of the issues, and if there's anything people want more specific, it's easy to run it.
Are you checking the organization memberships? So it's like that if someone belongs to the organization, how it works? They have a source code or something?
So, I can just link you the source code because I have it in GitHub. But yeah, so what I'm doing is I get all of the collaborators for AeroGear and AeroGear catalog, build a list of all of the issues, and then take out all of the issues that have members of those two organizations, and what was left over was these. So these are people who aren't in AeroGear or AeroGear catalog. I think I haven't posted the code to GitHub yet, but it's pretty easy. I'll just toss the GIF stuff over.
The context of this one, I think, was around there was a suggestion that we'd use some of this meeting time to review issues coming through GitHub. So if we were starting to see a lot of traction outside of the Red Hat team, that we'd need to have some formal way of like triaging the issues that were coming in and making sure that they weren't getting lost in the cracks. So yeah, I'm not sure how we can consume the list that you've provided there, or how we can make yeah, like there's a good few on mobile core. Yeah, Marek is there, but he would be internal. Dave Neary. Yeah.
I have a mic. Go ahead, Summers.
I was going to say, like, people like Dave Neary are, you know, they're at Red Hat, but they're not part of AeroGear, so they got lumped in with this as part of the community. You know, people who aren't working on the project and aren't really there to advocate for their issues or keep them in mind or follow up or things like that.
Yeah, so I guess, yeah, that's very true actually, Summers. And I guess the question is there enough stuff there for us to take a slot and say, let's go through them and triage them?
I have a suggestion, if you guys wouldn't mind hearing me out. I suppose when I looked at this card first, the first question I asked myself is, okay, so we have this information about some issues that have been opened. And my question is, what do we want to do with that information? And to me, it sounds like we want to be able to triage issues better. And this kind of ties in with the code owners thing, if you ask me. So I would suggest instead of like dedicating a portion of this meeting to trying to triage issues together, you don't need 13 people on the call to triage issues. Maybe we should, like, this is part of why we need to document the responsibility of a code owner for a repo. In my opinion, the code owner, one of the responsibilities would be to ensure that issues get looked after. So maybe we should make that definition and then try and have people act on that. And if that doesn't work, then we can revisit this and figure out how to do it better. What do people think? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sounds good to me, Dara. Would be good to get plus or minus ones even in the chat if people don't want to voice their opinion. Just thoughts on that suggestion from Dara?
Like, if I recall the original email to the mailing list about the code owners kind of topic, I think that was one of the main points that was actually brought up, was so that owners could ensure issues and pull requests get looked after. So, I mean, I'm just one person, but I think it makes sense if that's how we deal with it for now, and if it doesn't work, then we can figure out what to do next.
Yeah, I think if there's no other thoughts coming in, I think, Sarah, let's try it out. If it's not working, we can look at something else. But having some option in place is better than not having an eye on the issues. So I think go for it.
Cool. So I'm going to move that to the done column. Seems like it's fairly done to me. Cool. So I guess that brings us to the next portion of the meeting, which is to review the new items and have some discussion around those, and then maybe bring some of them in to agenda.next. So Laura, would you mind giving us a little bit more context what the agenda, like the difference between the agenda.next column is and the to-do column is?
Yeah, sure. So the to-do column would be any actions that we want to capture coming out of the things that we're discussing. So the new items would be things that are proposed to be discussed.
Okay.
So I think the top one, actually, I'm just looking at a comment from Summers, so I think we can move that out to discussed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then I think maybe the same thing with the second one. I think there's a comment from, on the second one, it didn't get many votes. So we might say delete, archive it, or move it out somewhere.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. I suppose we can archive it. I don't have much context on the t-shirts thing. Is that happening, or?
Oh, it was something we were discussing for like issue sizing for how to categorize these things when they come in. It's like, well, let's, maybe we want to just adopt a t-shirt sizing metaphor for, we think this one is small, we think this is medium, we think this is large. It really wasn't. It was like an offhand comment on our first meeting, I think.
Okay. So this isn't actually related to like, hey, let's get t-shirts made. It's more about.
Right. It was a.
Oh, this isn't about actual t-shirts. Sorry.
Yeah, it's not about actual t-shirt. It's a. It's.
Would I be right in saying? Is it just an alternative to story pointing? Sorry, okay. I didn't catch the response here. I think it's just an alternative to story pointing, but it didn't get votes coming in, so it's been there
exactly.
for a while. So
it was just another way to start the story pointing process of figure out the process of turning things on the mailing list into actionable items, and it really wasn't that important.
Okay, that makes total sense to me now. So do you guys just want to archive it, or do you think there's any more discussion that needs to be had?
Yeah, I don't think the discussions are had based on votes, so unfortunately for Summers it didn't get voted. So I'll move it out to a separate column. I don't want things to just completely disappear, because we might revisit things later.
Okay.
So I'll just move it out there now.
All right. All right, we'll move on to the next one. So setup and maintenance of a community OpenShift cluster. This is something I've heard people talking about for quite some time. Core team have been asked to look at standing up a community cluster, support our community offering, included but not limited to running a bunch of stuff. Okay. Who put this in? John put it in. Does anyone have any updates on what the status of this is?
Why is working on it?
Being worked on.
Is Way in the call? No. Craig? Okay, he's not on call. Yeah, I think the guys who are actually working on it are not on the call.
Yeah, we'd need someone to comment on it. Yeah, but just first of all, Dara, what we normally do is like do a vote, so everybody can go and vote on the cards, and we vote on, or we actually go ahead and then discuss the top 3 voted ones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, before we get into discussions. Yeah, but obviously this one is sort of maybe discount this one for this particular meeting until we have those on that can talk about it. So we normally just take a minute or so just for everyone to add a vote to one of the cards in the new items.
All right. So do you guys want me to go through them a little bit first before you vote, or do you guys just want to go through them yourselves and then just vote on things that you think are important? I suppose I'll go through them anyways because I haven't actually looked at them myself yet, so you can bear with me. So in the meantime, feel free to vote on this if you want to. So I'm going to move on to the next thing. So mobile CI/CD terminology approach in general. All right, so I guess this is basically a suggestion that we should try standardize on the terminology around the build farm / mobile CI/CD / digger service. And yeah, that makes sense. As the release of AeroGear mobile service progresses, we intend to change the documentation over time. However, people are already bookmarking and linking to existing docs. How should we handle the conflict between needing to change URLs and preserving existingness? Yeah, that's a really important one, in my opinion, but it makes sense. All right, media library proposal. Okay. Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll just leave you folks, take a few minutes to vote on the stuff that you'd like to see, prioritized, and we'll give it like 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll look at the most voted ones. All right, so I'm gonna take it that everyone that was interested in voting has done so at this stage. You also just watched me voting as well. I kind of voted on everything because I feel like it's all fairly important. Laura, so this works by looking at the top 3 most voted things. Is that correct?
Yes, we normally, I think we had a lot to discuss in the to-do items, so I'm just watching the time. We have about 10 minutes, so I don't know if we'll get 3 done like we normally do, but maybe we can aim to hit 2 or so, see how we go. So,
all
yeah,
right.
we move basically the top voted ones into the agenda next column.
All right, so I'm just going by completely by this order. Sorry, I know these both have 2 votes, but I guess we'll look at this again another day. Okay, so documentation approach, walkthroughs on and docs at aerogear.org have duplicated content. So Laura, you added this card. Do you want to add any additional context?
I think it's pretty much in what's in the description. So Service Team 1 did some updates to the docs.aerogear.org content, and in the sprint before that, Service Team 2 also did that. So I think what happened was we pulled in a lot of content from mobile docs, all the little files, but what had progressed sort of parallel to that was some walkthroughs, which also live in, it's either mobile docs or mobile core. Yes, it's mobile core.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of that now is duplicated. Basically, the walkthroughs kind of fed into a lot of the docs that we put on docs.aerogear.org, and the context of those are kind of more end user rather than developer. So I think it makes sense to just have one place where we put everything. So it would either be just removing the walkthroughs or taking the stuff in there that's not already in docs and put it in there. But either way, I think we need to not have all this duplicated content where there's people contributing separately. I think it's creating a lot of extra work. So, yeah, questions, thoughts?
I kind of agree with you, 90% agree with you, but there is a slightly different style to what's written in Mobile Core, and there's extensive use of screenshots, whereas when I moved it into Mobile Docs, it's a much terser style, and I'm trying to avoid screenshots that just go out of date. Though I think at the moment I can clear out what has moved from Mobile Core to Mobile Docs fairly easily. But going forward, I'm wondering whether we could take some sort of hybrid approach where, because I noticed that the contributors to Mobile Core continue to contribute to Mobile Core despite the presence of Mobile Docs, and I don't object to that. Though maybe when we, as a kind of future policy thing, that when something gets, how would I describe it, like pared down and moved from Mobile Core to Mobile Docs, that a copy of what was in Mobile Core could be posted as a blog post or archived, and I know it's there in the Git history, but I think it'd be something that we could actually get some value out of and make it more available than just in Git history. So let me reply to your proposal, Laura, and create a Jira to actually do the moving.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just reading comments in the chat there. So Wojciech is saying nuke Mobile Core Docs. Same as we did in the SDKs. What else is there? The installer. I'm not sure
Plus
what
CLI.
question is
I think
here.
it's mostly CLI and Mobile Core.
Yeah. I had just seen the walkthroughs and sorry, I can hear myself echoing back.
I don't think we can nuke the Mobile Core Docs. There's there's a lot of material in there that we haven't moved over yet. For example, getting mobile services up and running on an existing OpenShift cluster. We we currently don't have any official docs for that. If you want to do that at the moment, you have to go to Mobile Core. So there are use cases documented there that we don't even have any plans to move to mobile docs.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't want to lose any content. So I think anything that's where the process is documented in docs.aerogear.org, can we remove that content? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because we have done that with the SDKs, and we did it with. Did we do it with mobile docs as well?
We did it with the SDKs. You mean the APBs? I know it's on a backlog someplace.
So I haven't hit enter, but I think this is one of the things we're looking to do then, right? Is identify kind of places where docs have been duplicated across repos and in AeroGear.org, and then with the end goal of eventually pruning those wherever it makes sense. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, for me that would be a good place to get to. I think having duplicates is just overcomplicating the process of documenting new stuff. Like if we have to write it in one place and then convert it and put it somewhere else, why not just write it in one place and leave it there? Just once we know where that place is and we're all in agreement, I think it will remove a lot of complications from the process.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Paul made a really good point though as well. Paul made a really good point as well about how there are docs in repos such as mobile core that are kind of written in a different style, I suppose, to the way they're done on aerogear.org. And there are cases where maybe it does make sense to have the docs in the repos sometimes. So, like, I know just from personal experience, and feel free to disagree with me, but I find like the README for a repo usually kind of shows examples on how to get the thing up and running, whatever the thing is, whatever the repo is, but then, link to the further documentation as well from within that README. Like as long as you can make it clear from within those, like if we adopt an approach where there's no docs in any of the repos, then at least it has to be really clear where you can find the docs just by landing on any of those repos. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and we do that in either the showcase or the SDKs where so you have your README and there's a link in the README to docs.aerogear.org. There's a link to aerogear.org. Also a link to the developer documentation, which does live in the repo. So there's two kind of user personas. There's the contributor or developer, and then there's like the consumer of the stuff who actually just wants to deploy and use it. Yeah. So I think we had agreed, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, that the developer docs could sit somewhere in the repo, and then the end user docs would all be kind of collated and put into mobile docs and built into docs.aerogear.org.
That's correct.
So I'm not advocating having zero docs in there. It's just particularly with the walkthroughs, there's loads of content in there, lots of stuff which could be categorized as the developer docs, and then other stuff which has been lifted and moved to the end user docs. So yeah, I think the way you've written the task is good. Just first of all, let's identify what could be duplicated and maybe make a decision then in terms of what we want to nuke or not nuke.
Cool. Does anyone have any other actions, or can you consider this discussed?
Yeah, basically what I put into chat. It would be cool to have, as a card.
I think we've already done that. Certainly there are no contributor docs on docs.aerogear.org.
But is that true for, our way around?
No,
Yeah,
it's not true the other way around, and that's what Dara has identified there. Ideally, the task would be identify any documentation that is user-facing and remove it from. See, that's remove it from that repo. But I don't like doing that because there may be sort of edge cases that are documented in a repo, and we don't have a location in mobile docs for that particular information. Though it's still discoverable, but it isn't easily discoverable through docs.aerogear.org.
yeah, that's a really good point.
So I think it's really, the first next step is to remove the stuff from walkthroughs that can be removed, and I'll do that. And maybe we just simplify it down to that there.
Okay.
Remove walkthroughs where there are duplicated on docs.aerogear.org. I can edit this if you want to move on.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Okay, so I'm going to move this to discussed. We'll try get to this one. I'd say this one will be short enough. So mobile CI/CD terminology. There are basically a bunch of different naming conventions. Do you have anything else to add to that, Laura?
Not particularly, no. Yeah, I just think someone flagged it with me that the APB had build farm digger and mobile CI/CD, and I think traditionally build farm was the older 3 Extreme build farm. Digger was the self-managed version of the build farm. So I think both of those are out of date terminology. It's just that the functionality is similar. So as far as I know, it was agreed that we'd use mobile CI/CD, and probably the old terminology is just left over from before when we made that decision. So there would be some action to update the APB, the YAML file, and actually I think a lot of the Ansible commands, either the names of the commands, I think it's mostly the names of the commands, have reference to those older terms as well. So there's probably a nice chunk of work in that actually, because it'll have to be tested and that, So I mean, if anyone has objections to that being done or any concerns about it, I would say just shout.
There's also the repository name itself that uses digger in the name.
Yeah, which I mean, I find that a little confusing because for me, digger is this 4x self-managed product.
I just say that if you're going to rename everything, we need to rename the repository name and the Docker image name as well.
Yeah, Leo, if you wouldn't mind, or is that maybe Dara's add that? Yeah, I noticed the repository was digger as well, which is again a little confusing because it's a bit different to the old digger.
And I use a variable name with digger in the docs. So if you're looking at the source of the docs, it says digger service. I can change that.
Oh, is the agreement that the mobile CI/CD or a variant that works in something like a Docker image or a repo name should be used instead?
Yep, I think so.
Okay, so I think that kind of captures most of it then. APBs, docs, repo names, basically anything really. .x related, make sure that we're not using these terms. So, happy with that one?
Yeah, I think just give people the opportunity to shout if they disagree or forever hold your peace on that one. But yeah, fine.
Cool. All right, documentation links.
I'm just gonna, Dara, sorry, we're actually just over on the time.
Okay.
yeah, we do normally aim to discuss 3, but I also don't want to go majorly over on time as well with these meetings. We have another one on Monday also.
Okay.
So if we don't hit that one, I don't think there's any issue with it not hitting that one today, unless anyone has a burning desire to stay on and discuss documentation. No offense, Paul, I know it's your one.
I insist. Everybody contributes to this.
You've had a good run now today, Paul.
That's true.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, that's cool then. So thanks very much. I hope you guys didn't get bored to death too much. At least we got a few actions out of it and we got a few things wrapped up, so that's good.
Yeah, and thanks for facilitating the meeting, Dara.
All right, thank you.